So welcome everyone, and thank you for joining this masterclass. So my name is Jonathan Boel. I'm a senior project manager and auditor at Quality by Design. I have approximately 10 years of experience, mainly within computer system validation, data integrity as well, but also implementing quality management systems. And whether that is towards the manufacturing of pharmaceuticals, whether that's as part of clinical trials, whether that's as part of putting medical devices on the market, I've seen many and different tastes of across my experience. So next to that, I'm also a certified information system auditor, and I'm also a member of ISPE, the International Society for Pharmaceutical Engineering. Their special interest group, especially towards artificial intelligence and machine learning. Which brings us then towards this masterclass. First of all, a regulatory framework is very complex, especially with different authorities and initiatives taken by either companies striving for harmonization or the authorities themselves. I will start by breaking down and giving an overview of the ongoing initiatives. From there, I will then dive deeper into the objective and the requirements of artificial intelligence regulatory framework. To continue also and give you an idea of what can the practical impact be of this regulatory framework and what should be expected, for example, for the high-risk artificial intelligence systems. To then finalize on some validation considerations, both towards artificial intelligence as machine learning, looking towards a validation approach, and what impact this will have on the lifecycle model. So if you start at if you start with looking at the different initiatives, both health authorities and organizations striving for harmonization, such as ISO, they're taking ample action. Let's start, for example, with the FDA. FDA came in April 2019 with the first discussion paper towards artificial intelligence, machine learning for software as a medical device. With this information, they reached out towards the general public to gather feedback. In January of last year, 2021, an action plan came with all the inputs from the general public. If we continue, for example, towards ISPE, so the International Society for Pharmaceutical Engineering, they started also in the beginning of 2019 with a special interest group. And their purpose is really to explore, educate, and bring regulatory awareness to the general public, in a way just like this masterclass of today. ISO, so the International Organization for Standardization, they have multiple publications on artificial intelligence under development. And the first one on the use cases of artificial intelligence has been published in May of 2021. And we can go, for example, towards the NMPA, the National Medical Products Administration, which corresponds to the Chinese authority. They're mainly focusing on standardization towards artificial intelligence and machine learning in medical devices. And they're really taking steps to go forward and to set the scene. The IMDRF, the International Medical Device Regulator Forum, also assembled a working group on artificial intelligence medical devices specifically. In May of this year, a first publication came from this working group on the definitions for artificial intelligence and machine learning to align our terminology, because yes, that's where it starts, the terminology. Last one, definitely not least, if you look what's going on in Europe, we have the European Commission. They came already in 2018 with a strategy on artificial intelligence, which resulted towards April of last year, so April 2021, where they came with a draft regulatory framework on artificial intelligence. Very generic, not only towards pharmaceuticals, towards medical devices, for all type of artificial intelligence systems. Which brings us then towards the second part, the objective requirements, and practical impact. So it's really on the latter of the examples towards what the European Commission has defined that I will go more into detail for the regulatory part. As this is applicable for all kinds of artificial intelligence implementations, it is currently also the most detailed described. That's the main reason why I will be focusing on this regulatory framework. But definitely keep in mind also the other initiatives, either by FDA, ISO, ISPE, or even others which I might not have mentioned. European Commission set forth 4 objectives. First of all, they want to ensure that the artificial intelligence systems they are safe and respect the existing laws. This is important to understand. It means that all the previous laws as part of the European Commission or local laws, they will prevail, and that this current drafted regulatory framework towards artificial intelligence comes on top of it. It's really not an or story, it's an and story. Secondly, the European Commission wants to facilitate investment and innovation in artificial intelligence. They really want to go forward in it. They see the benefits and they see what possibilities could arise from implementing these technologies. From processing more complex questions towards processing it in a faster way, or coming to even completely new insights. A third part, the governance model, because that's also their responsibility from the European Commission out. They want to enable a governance model which facilitates effective enforcements. They want it to be fit for purpose, not heavy loaded. Coming towards the fourth objective, they also want to facilitate the development of a single market for artificial intelligence systems to prevent market fragmentation. Europe sees and understands that they need to take the lead, also in the broader world landscape, to come with a single approach which can work for all the different countries as part of European Union itself. So those were the objectives of the drafted regulatory framework from the European Commission. And those 4 objectives, they have also been translated to 7 requirements in order to come to what will this regulatory framework look like. The first one, also maybe the most recognizable one, is a human agency needs to be implemented to keep an oversight on all the artificial intelligence systems in the European market. We have all seen some science fiction movies where artificial intelligence will take over the world. Well, in this way, we're going to prevent it, or at least to try and control it. When we go towards the second requirement, then, they want to enforce technical robustness and safety to ensure the safe and reliable artificial intelligence system. We can also include this with the next requirement, which is towards enforcing privacy and data governance requirements, again, to ensure that the artificial intelligence systems which will be put on the market, they're safe and reliable. Those 2 words are really the key words, safe and reliable. Safe, reliable, but also transparent. Transparent not only to the European market, not only to the different companies, but also towards the end users of such systems. What can they expect of such an artificial intelligence system? What is performed with it? What is the way how it is maintained? So transparency is also very essential in this story. Continuing towards the other requirements which they set forth, we can combine the next 2 as well. So first of all, we have there that they want to ensure diversity, non-discrimination, and fairness of AI systems, but also that those AI systems which will be put on the market, they need to have a social and an environmental added value. They need to come with added value to, for example, already existing systems where no artificial intelligence is implemented or incorporated of it. Diversity, non-discrimination, fairness, social well-being, environmental well-being, that's really the key takeaway, I would also say, from those 2 requirements. Last part towards the requirements is that they want to ensure accountability of such artificial intelligence systems. This accountability relates actually very strongly also towards the first one. Who is accountable? Who needs to go and explain? Who needs to go and inform the human agency which is keeping the oversight? With these requirements, as part of the regulatory framework, what can we expect now? What will be the practical impact from a generics perspective in one way? On the other hand, what can we expect for the most complex, the most risky artificial intelligence systems? So we started with the initiatives. Then we continued with looking towards the regulatory framework, where both we had the objectives and we had the requirements, which we touched. And now we will go further into what you can expect from an impact perspective. How can you prepare yourselves already now in advance of this regulation with AI systems which you would like to put on the market? First of all, there will be a set of harmonized rules. Why do we need those harmonized rules? Well, if we relate it back towards the different objectives, we wanted to have single market, which is not fragmented. They wanted to facilitate investment and innovation. To do so, there will be a need to have harmonized rules. There will also be prohibitions. Not every artificial intelligence system will be able to be put on the market. For example, artificial intelligence-based social scoring for general purposes done by public authorities. More examples and more details are described as part of the regulatory frameworks. I would like to refer you towards there if you're really afraid to what can and what cannot be put on the market. The third one then, what can you expect? Well, they won't come with a solution which fits all. They will come with the risk-based classifications and also different requirements depending on the risk classification for AI systems. Meaning that the more risky AI systems, the more different controls will have to be defined, implemented, and verified to get those artificial intelligence systems on the market. The next one, transparency rules for the AI systems, can directly be related towards the transparency requirements towards end users, towards the European Commission, towards the different markets. It doesn't stop once the product is put on the market. There will come a set of rules also on market monitoring and surveillance to ensure that those systems which are put on the market, they keep having their intended use. Why is this important? Well, especially for the artificial intelligence systems which are self-learning, there we need to ensure that they will keep generating the expected output, the expected outcome once they have been put on the market itself. If we then go a step further, so if you go and look really at the more critical AI systems, what can we expect there? So following the risk-based approach, the following can be expected for high-risk AI systems. And an example of such an high-risk AI system, for example, towards the finance and financial industry, is a system which would evaluate the credit worthiness of a natural person or establish their credit score. So if you would have an artificial intelligence system which will evaluate whether or not you can get a loan, that would be seen as a critical artificial intelligence system. What do they require? Well, they would require that to implement a risk management system. They're really talking about a risk management system in order to manage the risks towards the product, so the artificial intelligence system, but also towards the processes around that product, how that product is being put on the market, how that product is being maintained. What are risks, for example, towards post-market surveillance? So it goes really broad and goes over the processes of just the product itself. We can definitely see a link here, for example, towards smart quality as well. The second part, the quality management system, is also one of the things you can expect to be implemented. Looking towards how you manage your documents, how you manage your records, how you will go and handle your continuous improvement part. So next to those system-related parts, you will have to go and define a technical documentation. How will this look like? Well, you will have to go and have documentation on the system you want to put on the market to show that it's safe, that it's reliable, how you handle data governance, how you handle cybersecurity, how you will ensure that the end users know what they can expect from your system. And this entire technical documentation, as well as your generic setup, definition of your processes, well, that will be subject to a conformity assessment. So there will be a third party which will have to come and assess whether your product is safe, reliable, whether your product meets the different requirements set forth by the regulation, and also the different objectives. Very specifically, maybe towards standalone high-risk artificial intelligence systems, well, those will have to be registered as part of an European database. Here again, we come back towards what I mentioned before. We have already a set of regulations in Europe in the different countries present. This drafted proposal is on top of that, and we need to ensure that the systems we put on the market, that they are adhering to this drafted regulation, but also towards all the existing regulations. So that's why this requirement for registering the high-risk AI systems, which are standalone, is specific for the standalone systems. If, for example, you want to put a medical device on the market, and as part of that medical device, there is an artificial intelligence component of it, well, then first of all, you will have to start from your medical device regulation and then see what parts of the drafted regulatory framework towards artificial intelligence would also apply towards the medical device specifically. Continuing record keeping, how are you gonna handle your records? But also you will have to define your data management, your data governance at your company itself, and ensure the accuracy, robustness, and the cybersecurity of the AI systems. And that last one, honestly, the accuracy, the robustness, and the cybersecurity. If you would translate that freely, or if I would translate that freely, well, we want those systems to be safe and reliable. What can you do to get ahead? What can you do to already get started? Well, you can implement such systems, such risk management system, quality management system, which can tackle your technical documentation, which can handle your different records. So definitely don't be afraid to take steps and looking towards implementing such quality management system, risk management system, and so on and so forth. Something else which is also worthwhile noting, if we look at the practical impact of the high-risk artificial intelligence systems, well, so as mentioned, we have the risk management, we have the quality management, we have the technical documentation, we have the conformity assessment. For those who are working in the field of medical devices, we can see a very strong link in the drafted proposal towards artificial intelligence, there the regulatory framework, and the already existing medical device regulation. We definitely see a similar approach. How will you manage your risks? How will you manage the quality? How will you document what your system will do? The independent assessment of conformity of your product. So you can already have a very good view and feeling to where the draft regulated framework is going to go, is going to evolve to. So then we're getting towards the third part, so the validation considerations for artificial intelligence. But before to continue, maybe just small recap. Started with looking at different initiatives. many authorities, many companies striving for harmonization, they are taking initiative. There's more than information present to start and take action. Don't wait for the regulations to be effective. You can take action, you can start to go ahead. From there, we looked more detail towards the drafted regulated framework from the European Commission. What we saw there is they set forth 4 different objectives, which can be translated to a couple of requirements, where safety, reliability is key, but also ensuring the current set of laws which are already present. And then we went into more detail, for example, towards the high-risk AI systems, where very specifically you can already see what the expectations will be. You will have to have a quality management system, risk management system. You will have to have documentation on the system you want to put on the market. You will have to go on a conformity assessment, and all that, including data governance, accuracy, safety, and cybersecurity as well. What's the next step now? If we include this artificial intelligence as part of our systems, we will also have to show that, well, it's doing what it's intended to do. And then we very quickly come towards validation. Validation of systems has already been around for a very long time. And now we're looking more and more, also the same companies striving for harmonization, they're looking towards how can we include artificial intelligence in our current approach towards validating them. If you start with looking at the different types of artificial intelligence systems, and I might focus on artificial intelligence, but it would be both towards artificial intelligence and machine learning systems. So this is from an article from Drug Safety, looking towards validating intelligent automation systems in pharmacovigilance and giving insights from good manufacturing practices. The main thing I want you to take away from this is looking towards the classification and what can then be expected. That would be under the definition part, and what we can already use or leverage in our current way of working. So first of all, if you start with the rule-based static systems, what does this mean? Well, automation is achieved via static rules designed to obtain a desired outcome, which means that we define something and then we log the system. For such kind of rule-based static systems, we can use the current validation framework. And whenever I'm talking about the current validation framework, I would refer to, for example, GAM 5. So GAM standing for Good Automated Manufacturing Practices, where a second revision was published recently. There are other regulations and good practice guides talking about or writing about validation, but that would be my first reference to go to. So there, what do we see for the rule-based static systems? Well, we can go ahead, we can use what we have implemented at the moment. If we take a step further then towards artificial intelligence-based static systems, there as part of the system configuration, it includes components that are AI informed, but at the end it's frozen. So once it has been put into production, the models, they are locked. If we would like to make changes towards those models, well then retraining of the model would be required, and we would have to come with, let's say, kind of a new release, a new deployment of that system itself. What examples can we see? Well, examples include an auto-translation system of source documents, for example, and model based on machine learning for causality assessment of individual case safety reports. What we see there is that the current validation framework covers already a lot of the different steps, but that there are some items where we need to rethink. For example, towards the retraining part, how are we going to go implement that, include that as part of our validation framework? If you go then a step even further, so towards the AI-based dynamic systems, here those systems, they can adjust their behavior based on data after the first implementation in production. based on a predefined learning process. So there, those systems, they will keep evolving. We can start with the validation framework we have. We can think about training and retraining. But since it's learning from itself, how are we going to go and handle that? So we will have to go and think about a bit more about those aspects. So this to set a bit the background and the complexity of what's going on. If we continue with that maturity model thought, and here all credits go towards the ISP GAMP DACH group, so that's the group in Germany, Austria, and Switzerland, who came with the maturity model. They looked at two things. They looked at the control design and they looked at the autonomy of the artificial intelligence system. So if we start with looking at the control design, which corresponds towards the x-axis on the overview, what we see there is that, for example, for the first stage, an artificial intelligence system, it's used in parallel to the normal way of working, the normal GXP processes. That's the first stage. In other words, we always have the possibility to compare it to how we do it currently or how we did it in the past. If you go to stage 2, the system is executing a GXP process automatically, but the output of it must be actively approved by the operator, meaning that in such case, it's replacing a current way of working, but there is at each time an approval of the output which was generated by the AI system. If we go and look a stage further, stage 3, what do we see there? Well, the system is executing the process automatically and it can be revised, meaning that we have the possibility to review, control, but we're not enforced to do so. Going towards stage 4, then the system is running automatically, it's controlling itself. And stage 5, the system is running automatically and it's correcting itself. So it's moving on, changing towards where it should go to. So this is for the control design, which corresponds towards the x-axis on this on the graph. If we continue then towards the y-axis, so the autonomy of the AI system, what do we see there? Well, we have 5 stages in here and a stage 0. For the stage 0, it's a fixed algorithm which is used, so no machine learning. This would correspond also towards the static systems as part of the article which I referenced to. Stage 1, the system is just used in a locked state. Updates are performed by manual retraining with new training data sets. So, okay, so here we need to think about the retraining part, the manual training part. Stage 2 is then towards that the system itself is telling the end user it might be relevant to perform retraining, and then manual retraining is taking place. Stage 3 is then updates are performed in an automatic way, an automatic retraining way, but where the output of the retraining is verified by a person, so a manual verification step. Continuing then towards stage 4, the system is fully automated, it learns independently with a quantifiable and optimization goal. In other words, it has a direction where it knows where to go to. And then the stage 5 towards the autonomy, the system is fully automated, it learns independently. These are the kind of systems where movies are made from and for which reason we need a human oversight. But let's not go too much into detail of that part. If we take those now together, so if we take the control design together with the autonomy, the ISP GAMP DACH group, they came with a maturity model towards different validation categories. So the validation categories, they're shown on the graph. So if we start with the first validation category, so that's the validation category 1, no actual validation would be required. Why was that? So if we look towards the control design stage 1, this was where an AI system is running in parallel to an already approved, validated process before. Since we can compare it to that process, there is no formal need for validation. nothing to do, easiest way to go. If we then continue towards the second validation category, what we can see there, so there the validation of computerized systems, we can use the current framework which is in place. Continuing then towards the third validation category, so that's where the autonomy is on a stage 1 part, meaning that there is an independent approver of the different steps. Well, what will we have to do and control additionally? We will have to have document justification why a certain model was selected, why certain training data sets were selected, how they were verified, how that data is independent of each other, which quality assurance model was implemented, and what input data we're using towards data monitoring and operation. So those are really additional controls which we need to think of and implement for the third validation category. Continuing then toward the fourth validation category, all the above actions are still applicable. Category 2 actions, Category 3 actions are applicable. But what can we expect additionally? Well, we'll have to have monitoring of model quality and operations and controlling quality KPIs and notification process. Why is this? If you look back towards the category 4, well, in here, there is no formal enforcement to revise the content. We can review it, we can perform retraining, but there is no must. What do we need to do then? Well, then we need a process which triggers us when to review the content, when to update the content. Going towards category 5 then, what can we expect there? So in the category 5, that corresponds towards stage 4 and stage 5 of the control design. What did we have there? Well, it's learning from itself. The system is learning from itself. We'll have to periodically retest with the defined test data set, and we'll have to have assurance of self-control. So those are really key takeaways there. For the sixth validation category, currently there are no validation concept, but as you can see with this maturity model, people are thinking about it, people are making steps to go and see how we can incorporate this in our way of working. So this is really towards the validation approach, different validation approach depending on the maturity model of your AI system itself. But how can we see and link in here with the life cycle of our AI system? This slide comes from the discussion paper from the FDA on the AI ML for software as a medical device. What can we see in here? Well, if we look towards a general approach, in the beginning, we'll have to go and select our data. We'll have to go and define how we split that data in a couple of data sets. Then part of those data sets, they will be used for the model training, model tuning. A different set of data sets will then be used for model validation. Performance evaluation, clinical evaluation will have to be performed as part of the medical device context. And then we can go and see to have our system implemented, get on the market. So we'll have first some pre-market assurance of safety and effectiveness. And then the system, let's say the medical software as a medical device is on the market, it's deployed. How do we continue with it? Well, with the information which is coming from the market, and there the key process is really the post-market surveillance. We'll have to go and think towards the data, how we will have to retrain data, and what's really key and part of there is the culture of the quality and organizational excellence. That data, and now we're actually following the black process flow in a way, comes back towards changes towards the system itself, model training, model tuning, coming back to model validation to come to a new deployment model. So really the key takeaways there. First one, culture of quality and organizational excellence. Pre-market assurance of safety and effectiveness. Review of the software as a medical device pre-specifications and the algorithm, but more important also how you will go and control their different changes towards that. And then the real-world performance monitoring. So if we combine now both of those, so we had the validation considerations and we had a look towards a lifecycle model, in this case, very specific towards medical devices, but it's just to set the context. If you bring that together, and if we look, for example, towards a lifecycle model where machine learning is part of it, we start at the top left. So once again, we have there the data acquisition, the data selection. We have our data sets. We'll have to go and decide how to split those data sets, case data sets, which ones will be used for training, which ones will be used for testing, which ones will be used for validation. So if you look there and if you look at those activities, we can see that those activities they could take place in and then relating back to GAMP towards the concept phase of GAMP. What's the business need? What are the opportunities? And that's really also one of the key takeaways I want you to take from this masterclass is that data selection, data split will be one of the key steps as part of later on validating your AI system. If you continue then towards the project phase, where we want to go and implement our AI system, you have a split between the white part and the orange part. The white part would correspond to the traditional system itself, and in the orange part, we have really specifically towards the machine learning activities. What do we see in there, or how do we see the link in there? Well, for the system, we will define the needs, the user requirements, which will be then translated towards how it will function or the functional specifications, which then itself will give requirements towards the algorithm, the model which needs to be used. With that training set, then the model can be trained. And then based on, for example, model testing on a scorecard, we can say that the model is trained and it's ready to be included as part of the system in the bigger picture. So we're back up in the white part where we had the URS, FS, configuration specifications, we configured, we coded our system, and now we're going to go and test it. First off, we will start with testing the configuration, the integration tests of the system. And when we will be coming towards the system testing part, we will have to include both the AI part as a system itself, which brings back actually another point. Also in this step, so in the system testing part, and also in the user acceptance testing part, which will follow, we will need to have an independent data set for those activities. Once this process has been gone through, the system is doing what it is intended to do, it fulfills our purpose, well, then we will be able to deploy, to release the system into operation. Coming towards the operational processes, also described as part of GAMP 5, where change management is really the key process. Not only change management towards, let's say, the core app, but also towards the learning approach, the machine learning part. Here, linking back to, for example, the lifecycle module, a bigger emphasis will come towards post-market surveillance. What data is being generated? As part of this data, do we need to retrain? Do we need to remodel? And how do we incorporate this live data with the data we used in the beginning of our systems? So it's really a loop going back and forth, going forward, learning. This model is just an example. If the system would be self-learning, this model would look differently. And the main message which I would like to give you to come towards the end also of this masterclass is whenever looking towards your validation approach, think of it from the beginning. First, identify what in which validation category you would fall as part of the ISP GAMP DAG group maturity model, what this would mean towards which controls will I implement, how will I verify those items, and then also once put on the market, how will I maintain my system, both the core app as also the machine learning part. So we've now covered the three parts of this masterclass. First part was to give you a taste of what's going on, what's playing in the field, whether that's towards authorities, whether that's towards companies striving for harmonization. As mentioned before, ample action is being taken. Really looking forward towards what's coming from there. Going then deeper into the drafted regulatory framework from the European Commission out. There is more than this regulatory framework. I take this as an example as it is the most specific at the moment. They defined objective requirements. You can also have already an idea of what the practical impact will be from a generic perspective, but also for higher risk AI systems. And what I told there is be prepared, go ahead, know what's coming. You can take actions on that part. Then translating into if I have an AI system and if I have to show that my system does what it needs to do, how are we going to validate it? We have validation processes existing already for some years in different ways, whether it's waterfall, agile, or even a different methodology. But how do we include there the AI and the machine learning components? Well, you get this kind of a second layer, as it's still also shown in this figure, which I'm showing here. Ensure that you include this in your total lifecycle model. Not only towards your first release deployment, but also later on, once it's put on the market, how are we gonna manage changes? How are we gonna manage retraining? Changes to the algorithm, but also changes towards the core app. There's no one solution which fits it all, but there are more than enough building blocks to go take steps and go ahead. So thank you very much to be present as part of this masterclass towards the artificial intelligence regulatory framework and the different validation considerations.